Good morning. We look today at Numbers 26 and 27. I kind of look at the Bible Gateway reading plan and that in our daily bread, and we're just one chapter different now. The Bible Gateway would have us reading in addition to chapter 28. So we'll probably get back on schedule so that they're the same. And whether we do or don't, I mean, it's not really a big deal. But I try to keep track so I know what I'm doing, a little bit what I'm doing anyway. Today in chapter 26, we have another census of the people of Israel. Moses and Aaron had taken a census, just after they had been set free from Egypt to count all of the men, the ones who would be, like between 20 and 50, the men of age that they could go to battle. And so there had been this census of those men, and God says to Moses and to Eleazar that they need to do another census. And since Aaron had died up on the mountain, and Eleazar is now taken Aaron's place as the lead man or the chief of the Levite tribe, the head of the priests, it's Moses and Eleazar who are in charge of the census now. And it again is the 20 years old and older. And so it says the Israelites who had come out of the land of Egypt were, and it starts with Reuben, and the firstborn of Israel, the descendants of Reuben, and it lists them, and it goes through and it lists, and it numbers each of the different tribes of the numbers of the people in each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And I mean, I certainly wouldn't take the time to write the numbers down from before and now again, but somebody did. And Simeon's tribe, Simeon's descendants had suffered the greatest number of declines. So there had been, there were fewer of his descendants now than there had been previously, comparatively to the other ones. And whether that's significant or not, I don't know if it'll come to play in any significance or not, but it's just, somebody who is a number cruncher did some looking at that. And so they've taken all of this the census again. And then when we get to verse 51, it says, this is the number of the Israelites, 601,730. And again, I don't know exactly how that corresponds to the previous number. I didn't look back. And then God says to Moses, now you're going to be going into the promised land soon, and you need to divide the land up according to the number of descendants of each of these tribes. We're just going to call them tribes, the descendants of the 12 sons of Israel that way. And verse 56 says, the inheritance shall be apportioned according to lot between the larger and the smaller. And so again, then it kind of lists all of the enrollment, and starting in verse 57, the clans of this and that and everything else that way, so that they can parcel the land out or make parcels of the land and divide it out between all of these people. And then in this last, the last part of verse 63 says, these are the ones enrolled by Moses and Eleazar, and reminding us again that Aaron is no longer there. Eleazar is the priest. And in verse 64 is one that we need to remember always. I mean, just to highlight, among these there was not one of those enrolled by Moses and Aaron who had enrolled the Israelites in the wilderness. So this, the original generation, the 20 to 50-year-olds that left Egypt under, from captivity, the only ones of them left alive at this point in time are Moses, Joshua, and Caleb. And it tells us that, because Joshua and Caleb were the spies that were sent out that were faithful in their duties. And even Moses is not going to see the promised land. We know that as well. But Moses points out to us, reminds us that because of the the inability of the Israelites to follow God, because they would continue to moan and grumble and complain, because they just hadn't been able to figure out how to live as free people. God had said, not one of you will enter into the promised land. And so at the end of chapter 26, we find that out, that God was again, or is again, true to his word. And then chapter 27 starts out with the daughters of Zelophehad, whatever his person's name is, that come forth because they were some of the majority of the people who had been killed because of, in the end of chapter 25 there were of this branch of people. And so the women come saying, you can't leave us out. And it was unheard of, for a woman to inherit land. I mean, it was such a patriarchal society that, it takes a long time for things to change. And, even in today's society, there are some people that just have real trouble accepting women leaders. I remember it's been quite a few years ago now that a person in a parish that I was serving as an interim or filling in until they got a new pastor, a person said, we'd even hire a female pastor. Well, they've had a female pastor for going on 20 some years now. I think that, that 3 of them that they've had, and they love them, but it's just that mindset of, but so anyway, here way back in Numbers 27, the women come and, our clan will be left out, and our sons, the grandsons of these men, should have some rights. So the land was parceled out. Verse 5 says Moses brought their case before the Lord. And this is another one of those examples of how intimate this relationship was between God and Moses. I mean, Moses was talking face to face with God. He could ask him the questions and he would get the answers. And there are people today that really wish that would happen, but I don't know if they'd really like the results always. But anyway, Moses went and talked to the Lord about that. And, and he says, the daughters of Zelophehad are right in what they're saying. They should inherit something for their fathers and their brothers and that. And then here's where we come with this test that we find Jesus being tested with. It says, if a man dies and has no son, then his inheritance shall pass on to his daughter. If he has no daughter, he should give it to the brothers. If he has no brothers, if a man marries a woman and dies, and he marries 7 brothers, and this woman still has no, or the woman, so here we find some of the history of that question that has come to Jesus, that way. And again, it comes a little bit back to the year of the Jubilee, and the land returning to the possession of the peoples that it had been, and a lot of those different things that way. So something new has happened here in Numbers 27. Women have become property owners, and it was, it just wasn't how it had been. So this is an example of how the law developed, how God helped change the people's minds of what was right and what was fair. And it was an unprecedented situation to have these women come, desiring to own the land. And so that comes out to that. And then verse 12 starts out with the Lord saying to Moses, go up on this mountain and see the land I've given to you so that it can be parceled out, And then he says, take Joshua, son of Nun, and go up on the mountain and pass your mantle of leadership to Joshua. And then take Joshua and go before the high priest Eleazar and have Eleazar bless Joshua and commission him to anoint him as the new leader of the peoples. And so in verse 22, so Moses did as the Lord commanded. He took Joshua and had him stand before Eleazar and had the whole congregation there. And he laid his hands Eleazar laid his hands on Joshua and commissioned him, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So Moses is passing the mantle on now, the mantle of leadership. We've got a few more chapters of Numbers to get through, and then we're going to read it all the way through Deuteronomy before we see a lot of Joshua, that way, and especially of any movement of the people. But so the mantle of leadership is passing. And it's one of the really hard things for any of us to do, is to pass on the leadership, to say, let the sons and the daughters take more ownership of the farm or of the business, or to give up some of that. It's my land. I've been farming it for all these years. It's my business. I built it from the ground up, and but it's how do we fairly and how do we graciously, as the older generation, step back and let the younger generation take the leadership roles and the responsibilities, and keep our mouths shut and know that they're going to make some mistakes. But for Moses, he had God's word that God had chosen Joshua, and God would be faithful, continue to be faithful in his leading of the Israelites, just as God continues to be faithful to you and me every day.